So, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to meet you. This is hosted and organized by Gyeonggi Provincial Government and Kintex. My name is Koo Young-soon. I'm an MC here for the Gyeonggi Provincial Government. It is an honor to be here. This Gyeonggi International Hydrogen Forum will be brought to you under the theme of Hydrogen Economy for the Future in a virtual format. This is held here in the Creative Economy Innovation Center, and we are broadcasting live through YouTube.
Thank you for attending Gyeonggi Province International Hydrogen Forum. This is Yong-sik, Korean and English announcer from Gyeonggi Province TV, the host for today's forum. 본 포럼은 한국어, 영어 동시 통역.
We are providing simultaneous interpretation in Korean and English, so please switch to the relevant channel on YouTube. With that, we would like to begin the first 2020 Gyeonggi International Hydrogen Forum. The theme of the first session is the current and future status of hydrogen energy. And for that, we would like to hear from many experts, presentations, and discussions. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we were not able to invite our international participants to be here in person, so we will be meeting them online. First, we'd like to hear from Emilio NIETO, General Manager of Spain National Hydrogen Center, an in-depth thematic presentation.
So we'll have a speech of first session.
Organizer in order to invite me, in order to take part of this summit, and I will try to make a small presentation about who we are and which are the activities of the National Hydrogen Center, and mainly focus on the new Spanish hydrogen strategy roadmap that is recently released. So where we are a national hydrogen center, a research center, who is called a consortium, who belongs to the two administrations. One of them is the central government, 50%, and the other 50% is the government of the Castilla-La Mancha region, who is where we are located in Puerto Llano, Ciudad Real, this 200 kilometers south from Madrid. Where we are now working here is close to 50 people, and we are covering the whole value chain of the hydrogen and fuel cells technologies development. So you can see here we have 13 labs. We have also 100 kilowatt PV installation where we are using in order to produce the green hydrogen. And also we are covering, as I told you before, the whole value chain in order to make all the different capabilities and developments from the workstation, storage system engineering, and so on. So you can see the picture of all of us, and we are starting in 2007. So from now on, we are developing more than 40 projects, funding 40 projects from national, regional, and also international research and development projects. What are our strategic lines? So as you can see, we are covering the whole value chain. We are working in the hydrogen generation, the production of the hydrogen on the different technologies we are using, and also is focused mainly in order to obtain by electrolysis the green hydrogen. That is the main goal of our center. We are storage and working also for how to store this hydrogen produced in order to use all the different systems, as you can see, and also how to convert this using the fuel cell for high temperature, medium and low temperature, and how to work with this kind of system and how to research in this kind of system. This is also a strategic line from our center. We are, once we are producing and store and convert into electricity, we are also working on how to integrate this hydrogen produced, not only for a stationary application, but also for mobility application. And you can see also another two main lines, strategic lines from ourselves, taking care about the safety and standards development, and also the cross-cutting and socio-economical developments, as you can see here in the both corners. Talking about the Spanish recently roadmap focus on the renewable hydrogen, you can see here that the main document is focused on the use of this green hydrogen, renewable hydrogen produced as a solution from we decarbonize the different industry process. So you can see that is the only possibility for us in order to comply with the climate goals defined from the Commission and also from the world, and also to achieve 2050 as a zero emissions society. And this is the main goal of this roadmap. It's focused, as I told you, in renewable hydrogen, and this means that they are considered this renewable hydrogen as a valuable energy vector in order to be used, as I told you before, as the most efficient way to decarbonize the different industrial processes. As you can see here, this is not only process from the normal industry process, but also for the high temperature process, and also from the mobility, mainly long distance mobility and heavy duty, as is recognized. But also is proposing to use this renewable energy as an energy storage, and the possibility of using this energy vector as a sector coupling. So one of the measures of this plan is to create and promote the environment is necessary in order to combine the supply and demand issue and try to develop different projects and different, let's say, hydrogen valleys or cluster in order to be able to continue working on the different parts of the value chain, and also try to be able, in order to concentrate in the same place all the different works, to be able to start and increase the economy of scale. That is the best way in order to reduce the current cost of the hydrogen production, mainly the green hydrogen. And you can see also in this roadmap, they are not only focused on the different use of this hydrogen as a raw material. As I told you before, you can use in different applications like oil refining, fertilizer, or chemical, for instance. And we are also proposing some measurements in order to boost this kind of use for this renewable hydrogen, and also in combination with the Commission and Europe level and the different intensive hydrogen industry, who is possible to be tackled with this kind of plan. Also, they are considering another use in the different areas where green hydrogen or renewable hydrogen offer the most suitable solution, because the electrification process is very difficult, or is not technically feasible, or is very costly. So, like for instance, the public transport or the different areas of the mobility, like the ports, airport, or different logistics or last mile applications, it could be one of the best way in order to move forward. So this means that in this roadmap is considered also this kind of applications, as well as the application and the use of this renewable energy in order to be used for decarbonize the heat cooling sector from not only industries but also the houses, and also try not to forget how it's possible to work with the Iceland and areas where are isolated from the energy point of view. So this also are considered with this Spanish roadmap. Another key element who is also taking care in this roadmap is what's happened with the regulatory and also the standards. So these are some measurement defined in the roadmap in order to be also recognized that is creating a new market and the potential of this renewable hydrogen in order to be regulated, and also try to use the same standards and try to help the Commission and the Europe in order to develop these standards together. And also some different measurements who are also very useful for the different stakeholders. That means that also considering the CO2 market and also the different taxes is possible to be used in order to give that how is the advantages from using this green hydrogen from the stakeholders. With all this information, they are proposing a document who are developing different challenges and opportunities in order to have the full development of this renewable hydrogen in Spain. And this means that in the plan, in the document, they are specified 60 measurements in order to try to work on all these things that this was already mentioned before in the presentation, and of course allow and align with the European Commission documents that is necessary in order to move forward with the renewable energy. And all this document is focused in order to show that Spain as a country has the opportunity in order to position in the center of this value chain of the hydrogen economy, in order to be a technological benchmark in the production and also the different uses feasible for this kind of green hydrogen produced. How is the measurement? These 60 measurements. So in the document, they are defining 2 different steps. They are a vision of 2030, and they are also the final vision of the 2050, that is to arrive to the climate neutrality completely. So you can see here, we have sorry, this is in Spanish, but I will try to translate this specific information in the different boxes. And one of the measurements is try to achieve and install a capacity of 4 gigawatts in 2030. In 2030, we need to arrive until 25% of the hydrogen to be consumed in the industry. We have to arrive and to develop an interval between 100 and 150 hydrogen refueling stations in Spain. We can have also between 150 and 200 buses, fuel cell electrical vehicles. So this means that they are using this green hydrogen from the combustion of these kind of systems, and also light and heavy duty, and is considered a big amount, around more than 5,000 in 2030. Also, another measurement is at least to have these 2 commercial lines of trade. So this means that we have several trains, hydrogen trains, in order to have the possibility to have these 2 lines operated in reality in 2030. And all the whole plan, it means that we have the possibility, in order to close to 5 million of tons of CO2 equivalent reduced, and an investment who is committed by the government is close to 9,000 million of euros. If we are continuing with this kind of roadmaps, it's no make sense in order to make this commitment if it's not possible in order to make some review in an intermediate stage. So it's 3 years of the plan. The government is set up one threshold in order to analyze the situation at that moment, in order to have the possibility to make the different review on the different evolution of the measurement. And also, last but not least, it's necessary in order to mention that this kind of document is also not, even if it's published officially by the government, it was also a lot of different bodies that is was already working with the government in order to have this document ready for publish, and also a real commitment from the public and also the private sector. And now I will try to show you, once the roadmap is already published, I want to give you some information about the different projects we are running, and they are ongoing projects in the National Hydrogen Center in Spain who are linked with this roadmap. And you can see here, for instance, 2 European projects that is considering the hydrogen generation and storage line, who are ARENA. This is a European project focused on the development of the ammonia as an energy vector. The other one is the magnet. The magnet is trying to develop catalysis and membranes in order to work with the methanol as an energy vector. So these 2 projects are the ones who are also working with the green hydrogen, but profiting the advantages of these new energy vectors with a high density, energy density like the hydrogen, covering ammonia and methanol. We have also another 2 projects working in the same strategic line, who are the Enigma, who is a national project who are focused on the development of the PEM electrolysis. So we are working in order to improve the different characteristics of some of the internal parts of the electrolyzer. And the other one, which is a regional project, is Hydroam. And you can see here, this Hydroam is also working mainly in defining how will be the best catalyst possible in order to improve the efficiency of the ammonium production as an energy vector. We have another project, these other two. This is a circular economy project, both of them, who are trying to use the waste and try to profit the waste in order to produce hydrogen. The first one is the tracker, is concentrate on how to emphasize and optimize the waste transformation. So the first part of the value chain in order to achieve the hydrogen production. And later on, once you have the hydrogen produced, you can go to the other project. This is the AgroSoft. And in the AgroSoft, we are concentrating in the whole value of this process. So this means when we are treat the waste, we are produce the hydrogen, we are using a soft fuel cell in order to improve the system and try to profit this as a power to energy conversion. You can see here another 3 projects working in different parts of the value chain. The first one is try to monitor the different dual systems from the combustion. This is EcoPen Dual. You have another one, Ideal, who is working in the same field, but also try to develop the different sustainable hydrogen production line. And the last one, CO2 Dual, is also a project who are working in the same field, but also try to use biohydrogen. So it's focused on the hydrogen we are producing throughout different biochemical processes. And you can see also some pictures about the different parts of the value chain. And in the last one, you can see the fuel cell hydrogen vehicle we have. This is a Hyundai EX35 who are here in our center. Another 2 projects is focusing on the ports area and also the ships. One is the H2 ports that is try to define how will be the value chain in order to produce the green hydrogen, but not use this green hydrogen as a fuel from the vessel, but also is producing this for the logistics of the port. So this means that all the vehicles who are inside the port, inside the area of the port, it will be using this hydrogen and will be clean. And the first goal is try to low carbon and zero emissions area in the port, in order to work on a clean-based system. And the other project who is finished in the last year is Shift for Blue, and this is also considering how it's possible to produce hydrogen in offshore wind. So we are developing a vessel who can produce during this travel the hydrogen, and this hydrogen, when you arrive to the port, use this hydrogen in order to be fed to the different parts of the process. Another 2 projects who are important also is a creation of a car. This is an Erasmus project. This is also an European project who different institutes are also working in order to develop this new vehicle in order to show that the hydrogen could have some advantages as a new fuel. And the last one is the Together, and this Together project is focused on another different application, who is the micro CSP system. So this is the kind of the system who are using in the houses in order to produce hydrogen and use this energy for the cooling and heating system throughout the renewable energy sources. And also another project who is already created, and you can see here see the link in order to upload. This is a free app, and this free app was already developed by us, and you can put this in your mobile, and you can drive your car, and at the same time you are seeing how will be your same trip if you will use a hydrogen vehicle. So this gives you an advice and all the information needed in order to see how will be the cost, how will be the consumption of the hydrogen, how will be the power, and all the different parameters if your vehicle will be a hydrogen one. So you can use this link in order to download this app. And also you have another two more projects, more concentrate in the research of the PEM system, and also in the last one you can see we have some vehicle in order to use this for testing different configurations for the mobility. The last one, I think it should be the last slide, and I would like to show you two other more projects. One international is collaborating with Chile, and this is also an important project in order to provide different mobile mining equipments and try to transform this diesel to hydrogen, mainly in the subterranean mining. Underground mining, that you can imagine that it should be better in order to reduce the CO2 emission from this contaminated fuel and try to replace with the hydrogen and reduce also the investment from the ventilation in this kind of installation. And the last one is an Interreg Sudoe. We are working also in order to develop the different microgrids from cooling, heating and power, zero public energy buildings. So this means that, for instance, different hospitals is possible to use this green energy and try to not to take care about what's happened with the network and the consumption of the energy, because you are safe and try to work isolated with the different network. And the last project is a pity I had not the possibility in order to describe like in the last, because we are under confidential agreements, and this means that we have one Green Island project, the new one, who is concentrating in Balearic Island, who is also centered in the green hydrogen production. We have another project here in our region with Iberdrola, and is also try to develop a complete project in order to, from renewable to the production of the hydrogen and use of this hydrogen here in the region. And also we are working with different companies in different applications like ships, ports, trains and buses, in order to develop different prototypes and try to have these prototypes working with this green hydrogen producing from the different renewables, but not only photovoltaic and solar, but also biomass. So this kind of projects is also ongoing, and in the next 2-3 years it will be also arrived to the end, and we will have the possibility in order to comply with some of the strategic lines and measurement that this was already explaining to you at the beginning of my presentation with the Spanish platform strategy, defined. So, and I think it should be all, so you can hear all my coordinates in order to contact me by LinkedIn, Twitter, or even by email. If you have any questions, I will be very happy in order to reply to you. So thank you again for your invitation, and see you.
Mr. Emilio NIETO, thank you for your presentation. The Spain 국립수소.
That was Director Emilio NIETO of the Spain National Hydrogen Center. He told us the different hydrogen projects that are underway in Spain, and he also told us the current status of hydrogen energy in Spain. So now we'd like to hear from experts here in Korea to hear about hydrogen energy transformation and energy conversion. Let me briefly introduce our panelists. Our moderator is Kim Sung-bok, the Chief Executive Officer of H2 Korea. Next, we also have Mr. Kim Tae-hyung of the Korea Energy Economics Institute, who will be presenting on hydrogen economy. Next, we'd like to introduce Kim Tae-hyung, Assemblyman of the Gyeonggido Assembly, Urban and Environmental Affairs Committee. From the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, we have Yong-sik, who is Hydrogen Team Leader of New Energy Division. Sungkyunkwan University Professor Song Jae-chun is with us today. And lastly, our host and organizer, Gyeonggi Provincial Government has sent their Director General for Environment Bureau, Mr. Jin-sub. Thank you very much for being with us. In this panel discussion, we will also have the participation of our online participants who are connected to us on a real-time basis. First, let's briefly watch a video on Gyeonggi's hydrogen policy video. And with that, we'd like to lead the panel discussion, which will be moderated by Mr. Kim Sung-bok. Now let's watch the video.
인류의 발전과 번성은 화석연료와 함께 해왔다. 하지만 자원 고갈, 환경 오염으로 인해 지구는 심각한 위기를 맞았다. 이를 대체할 신재생 에너지로 생태계를 재편해야 할 때, 전 세계는 지금 미래 세대를 위한 청정 사회로의 진입을 촉구하고 있다. 에너지 선진국은 파리 협약 이후 온실가스 감축 의무를 강화했고, 내연기관 자동차에 대한 규제 또한 강화되었다. 이는 오일 쇼크, 원전 사태로 인해 에너지 전환에 대한 필요성이 인식되었기 때문이다. 미국, 유럽, 일본에 이어 중국, 호주 등 다양한 국가들이 앞다퉈 추진하고 있는 수소 육성 정책. 우리 정부도 수소를 미래의 산업, 환경, 경제 분야의 신성장 동력으로 부각해 2019년 수소경제 활성화 정책을 발표했다. 이에 공감한 경기도 또한 수소 에너지의 필요성을 절감한 것이다. 경기도는 수소 관련 산업 기반이 우수하지만 저렴하고 안정적인 수소 공급망이 없고 전력 생산과 소비의 불균형 문제로 에너지 효율이 높은 신재생 에너지 보급을 적극적으로 도입해야 하는 상황인데다 미세먼지 문제 해결이 심각한 상황이기 때문이다. 최근엔 이재명 경기도지사가 탈석탄 동맹에 가입해 온실가스 배출량을 줄이고자 하는 의지를 적극적으로 표명했을 정도다. 이러한 필요성에 의해 정부 발표 이후 같은 해 9월 경기도는 저렴하고 안정적인 수소 공급망 확보 등 수소 생산, 운송, 저장, 활용 전 분야에 걸친 경기도 수소에너지 생태계 구축 기본 계획을 수립했다. 수소에너지 전환을 통한 CO2, 미세먼지 프리존 실현이라는 비전하에 경기도민 누구나 값싸고 깨끗하고 안전한 수소를 사용하는 물론 수소 산업을 미래 경제 성장의 동력으로 확산시켜 나갈 계획이다. 이를 위해 2030년까지 단계적으로 수소 생산기지 10개소 발굴, 수소 배관망 100km 확대, 수소차 13만 대, 수소 충전소 200개소, 수소 연료전지 발전 1기가와트 달성, 수소 융합 클러스터를 육성할 것이다. 2030년까지 기본 계획대로 달성된다면 약 156만 가구의 에너지 공급이 가능한 규모의 연료전지로 에너지 전환 효과, 약 7만 5천 명의 일자리 창출, 약 5조 5천억 원의 경제 투자 효과, 온실가스 9% 수준으로 감축, 미세먼지 연간 배출량 22% 감축 효과가 기대된다. 경기도는 수소 생태계 구축을 위해 5대 분야 20대 중점 과제를 선정했다. 안정적인 수소 공급 체계 구축, 도민 체감형 인프라 확대, 수소 융합 테마도시, 주력 사업 융합형 수소 클러스터 조성, 안전한 수소에너지 지원 기반 구축. 첫 번째, 안정적인 수소 공급 체계 구축. 평택시에 제일 먼저 저렴하고 안정된 수소 공급을 하고자 산업부 수소 생산기지 공모 사업을 유치했다. 타 지역의 분산형 생산기지와 달리 1일 7톤 규모의 중대규모 생산기지로서 버스 기준 280대, 승용차 기준으로는 1,400대를 충전할 수 있는 규모다. 또한 최초로 수소 배관망 지원 사업을 도입해 지원하고 있다. 경기도는 인구 밀집도가 높기 때문에 수소 배관망 확대로 안정적인 공급 체계와 민원 해소가 가능할 것이다. 안산 시흥에서는 민간 기업에 있는 배관망을 연장해 충전소에 공급하는 배관망을 구축 중에 있다. 향후에는 수소 생산기지 등 여건에 맞춰 배관망을 확대해 갈 것이다. 두 번째, 도민 체감형 인프라 확대. 경기도는 수소차 보급 활성화를 위한 충전 인프라 구축 방안을 구체화했다. 안성에는 국내 최초로 고속도로 수소 충전소가 설치됐으며 최근 화성에는 안성, 평택, 여주, 하남에 이어 5번째 수소 충전소가 설치됐다. 내년까지 30개소가 오픈 준비 중이다. 경기도는 수소 충전소로 연계 가능한 CNG, LPG가 전국 최대 규모, 가스, 정유회사들도 기존 주유소를 활용해 수소 충전소로 전환하겠다고 발표함에 따라 전국에서 가장 많은 주유소를 갖고 있는 경기도가 선두적으로 수소 충전소 인프라를 확장할 것이다. 세 번째, 수소 융합 테마도시. 경기도는 수소 거점형 생산도시, 수소 교통도시, 수소 스마트 산단, 수소 기반 에너지 자립도시 등 지역 특성에 맞게 수소 융합 테마도시를 확대할 것이다. 첫 번째로 안산이 수소 시범도시로 유치됐고 최근 국토부가 3기 신도시 중 2곳을 수소도시로 조성한다고 밝힘에 따라 경기도 내 수소도시는 증가할 계획이다. 네 번째, 융합형 수소 클러스터 조성. 경기도는 기존에 특화되어 있는 산업, 자동차, 소재 부품 장비 산업, ICT 정보통신 기술과 수소 산업을 융합한 경기도만의 수소 산업 클러스터를 발굴하고자 한다. 기술 중심의 수소 산업 생태계 구축을 위해서는 무엇보다 수소의 기술력 강화가 우선. 이에 경기도는 22년까지 대기업, 중소, 중견기업과의 협업을 통해 국내 기술력 확보를 지원하는 사업을 지속할 예정이다. 다섯 번째, 안전한 수소에너지 지원 기반 구축. 경기도 수소산업 육성 및 지원에 관한 조례, 경기도 환경 친화적 자동차의 보급 및 이용 활성화를 위한 조례 등 조례 제정을 통해 수소의 성장 기반 구축을 마련했고 세계 각국의 저명 인사들과 수소의 현재와 미래를 논의하는 2020 경기 국제 수소 포럼을 기획했다. 경기도 수소에너지 생태계 구축 기본계획을 수립한 지 1주년. 경기도는 2022년까지 분야별 추진 목표를 달성하기 위해 다양한 사업을 추진 중이다. 기본계획을 수립한 지 1년이 지난 결과 20개 중 7개의 사업에서 1,097억 원 규모의 발굴이 추진 중에 있다. 현재까지 부족한 수소 관련 인프라 구축을 지원하여 수소 충전소가 목표대로 추진되고 있고 이는 수소차 보급 증가로 이어질 것이라 기대하고 있다. 2021년 내년 경기도는 지역 산업과 연계되는 수소 특화 산업을 육성 발굴하는 것이 주요 목표이며 더불어 경기도민과 공감대를 형성하기 위해 노력할 예정이다. 이를 위해서는 지역별 특성에 맞는 정부 지원 정책이 필요하고 수소 전문기관, 인력 양성, 지역 특화 산업 지원 사업을 적극적으로 유치해야 한다. 수소에너지 생태계가 구축된 경기도의 미래. 새로운 에너지 패러다임이 새로운 경기도의 장을 열 것이다.
안녕하세요.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here for a panel discussion held under the theme of realizing energy transition through hydrogen energy. My name is Kim Sung-bok. I'm a Chief Executive Officer at H2 Korea. I would like to thank all of the guests who have taken time out of their busy schedules to be with us today, as well as our online audiences watching us online. Gyeonggido has worked for hydrogen energy transition for the supply of safe and reliable energy. We've looked at hydrogen ecosystem and also come up with a framework plan for hydrogen economy. We've been working very hard to try to establish a hydrogen ecosystem. This panel discussion will be looking at the energy policies, especially with a focus on hydrogen, promoted by Gyeonggido. We'll be talking about different plans and measures. For the purposes of the panel discussion, I would like to ask everyone to please switch your phones to vibrate mode or silent mode. And I would like to ask the presenter to keep within 12 minutes and the discussants to keep their remarks within 5 minutes. With that, we would like to turn to Kim Jae-kyung, Research Fellow at Korea Energy Economics Institute, who will be talking about realizing energy transition through hydrogen energy. Please give him a big round of applause.
네, 저 발표를 맡게 된
Yes, my name is Kim Jae-kyung of Korea Energy Economics Institute. In the interest of time, I will go straight into my presentation. Let me briefly tell you a little bit about hydrogen economy. Hydrogen has been used as industrial fuel in the use of fertilizers or maybe used in refineries. So it has been used as an industrial fuel for a very long time, but now we want to expand that to energy use and to try to expand its uses and create a new hydrogen economy. The core element here is that we need to have different infrastructure, the fuel cells, which is really a way to transition hydrogen. So this is a way of creating hydrogen through heat and energy. It's a sort of a mechanism that allows for energy transition using electrolysis or various other matters. And this has already been in use since the 1800s. And it has also been used in aeronautics, in space travel and space exploration. But this is also going to be used in the future. For example, with the famous movie Terminator, the energy source used here are fuel cells. It has general use of properties as well. It can even be put into smartphones or laptops, or if you create bigger fuel cells, you can put them to power hydrogen cars or even power generators. So it can be used for general purposes. This means that it can add a lot of value to the economy, and it has direct employment effects. So if we can establish this very well in Korea, then this can lead to a high economy knock-on effects and employment effects as well. It's also very environmentally friendly. If we make use of hydrogen energy, as I mentioned before, we can create energy in the process of bringing hydrogen and water together. So this means that we're basically only having a byproduct of water, which can lead to the lowered emissions of greenhouse gases and microfine dust. Through the hydrogen economy roadmap that was announced by President Moon Jae-in last year, it has been mentioned that Korea wants to become #1 in the hydrogen energy front going forward. It's a very ambitious plan, and the government is promoting it very actively. It's going very quickly. This year, in February, there was an act on hydrogen economy that was passed, and with this legal basis, we can create a sustainable sort of institutional basis for hydrogen economy. So the hydrogen economy is something that we can expect to see going forward. Furthermore, this year, we've also seen some new developments in terms of hydrogen economy. There were a lot of people showing interest. In the case of U.S., there was a company called Nikola. Nikola Motors is being a competitor to Tesla. It's been very highlighted and becoming very popular. So this meant that many people see the hydrogen economy as the future. We can see that there's a lot of interest in the markets right now for companies like Nikola. In Germany as well, Germany has announced plans to invest heavily into this sector. Not just Korea, but other countries around the world are promoting hydrogen economy. In the case of Japan, for example, which is a nearby country, Australia and the EU, they've announced Green Deal on hydrogen economy, a massive investment plan. And even the U.S., I know that the election results will be announced soon, but if a Democratic Party candidate will win, then they will have a lot of massive investment plans in the pipeline. 15 different countries, such as Spain, which we just heard from, are also working very actively, committed to hydrogen economy. So this is a global movement on hydrogen. This is very becoming internationalized. This is leading to the establishment of various multilateral mechanisms as well. So what is the relationship between hydrogen economy and energy transition? The energy that we've used thus far based on fossil fuels or natural gas, they're all based on fossil fuels and they have been useful for us, but the side effects here is that you have to burn them, and in the process of burning, this combustion leads to greenhouse gases or microfine dust, and this has been a very big problem in terms of our health and also for climate change. Ideally speaking, we want to create a natural, recreated and replenished and renewable energy source, which in the case of Korea, there's renewable and new energy. So in Korea, we call them new and renewable energy sources. But what we have to look here is that hydrogen is a new energy source. Renewable energy sources are a little bit different. They will be PV or wind power are known as renewable energy sources. So we want to promote renewable energy to try to have energy transition. That's the ambitious state agenda under Moon Jae-in administration. There's a 3020 plan, 2030, to try to increase renewable energy proportion by about 20% by 2030, and by 2040, they want to increase renewable energy ratio to about 30% or even 35%. And a recently announced government plan is that they want to go net neutral, carbon neutral by 2050. In fact, this was announced just about 2 days ago. This means that we need to see more upscaling of these new and renewable energy sources. However, renewable energy is very good and friendly. However, there are some challenges that we have to solve. Some wind and PV energy. With PV energy, there is a challenge that after some time, there is a lot of production, but after the sun sets, obviously there is no more PV energy. And also with wind energy, it's also intermittent, because when there's no wind, you don't have energy. With PV, you can make use of PV energy during the daytime, in the afternoon when you get a lot of irradiated energy. And when this leads to a max peak, then we can see an increase in the burden, in the load. It's difficult for us to adjust the output for PV and wind energy, so we have to bring that all into the energy system. When all of these energies are brought to the energy system, then we can take out the offset load to use an LNG or coal or nuclear energy. But to make use of this excess energy, there are some other things that we have to do to adjust this load. This issue of having a lot of solar energy during the day is also a seasonality issue, because in the summer months, obviously, this is going to get even worse. In countries or states like California in the United States, they established a lot of PV panels, but this led to an excess amount of energy during the daytime. Electricity has to be very finely calibrated in terms of its supply and demand. If there's a lot of peak energy that comes in during a particular time period, then you have to adjust the level and maybe cut off the source. But in Korea, when the sun starts to set from about 3 to about 6 p.m., then that means that the amount of energy drastically goes down. That means that we have to increase the outputs of other renewable energy, but other renewable energy sources, you cannot increase the input as well. This is called system inertia. When there is a supply and demand imbalance, that can lead to massive power outages, which is something that we've already witnessed in California, which is also something that we've seen in several places in Korea as well, like in Jeju-do, where renewable energy proportion is above 15%. So we've seen these issues coming out in Korea, which is why we're working very hard to solve this issue. One of the issues to solve this is to make use of hydrogen, because when there is a peak amount of energy coming in at a certain point in time, then maybe we can do water electrolysis and make hydrogen. Hydrogen can be stored as an energy source, and later the hydrogen can be put into fuel cells and converted to electricity. Or maybe this hydrogen can be put into hydrogen cars. This is called P2G technology, or power to gas technology. This power-to-gas technology may be made from PV or wind energy is also called green hydrogen. This expansion of renewable energy together with the hydrogen energy is the Korean Green New Deal. The Green New Deal's core elements are about hydrogen energy, expanding this P2G, sort of renewable energy, this green hydrogen source. Expanding this green hydrogen source is the thrust of this new plan. So we have to expand this green hydrogen source, and that is something that we have to do going forward. I think that is the general direction for hydrogen economy overall, but according to the roadmap that was announced in January of this year, I think a lot of that touched upon the important economic points, but it did not elaborate specifically on the supply of hydrogen. So one of the things that we have to do is what can we do in an eco-friendly way to produce and supply hydrogen? Some of the specific strategies have yet to come up. I think that pretty soon the government is going to update the hydrogen economy roadmap, maybe as a hydrogen economy roadmap 2.0. In Gyeonggido, they have come up with a similar strategy, which was very surprising to me. They want to create cheap and clean and safe hydrogen. That's very important to do, but it's not easy to do because if you make it cheaper, then that means there's going to be more use of carbon. It's not going to be as clean as you want. If you want to make it cleaner, if you want to cut down on CO2 emissions, then it's going to become more expensive. So to strike the right balance is very important to try to create the right balance mix. In terms of getting off carbon or decarbonization, one of the things that we have to look into is that for natural gas, extracting hydrogen from that process leads to an emission of about 11 kilos of CO2. Going forward, this is something that we have to continue to decrease. On the other hand, with automobiles, for hydrogen cars, the most amounts of hydrogen that is used here are byproduct hydrogen. This hydrogen is very clean. It's about emitting about 2.3 kilos of CO2, and it's very clean kind of hydrogen car. If we can put this into electric cars, then that can lead to a decrease of about 40% of CO2. So only about 60% of emissions of CO2 will be had. But ideally, we can do water electrolysis to lead to hydrogen, as I mentioned before. In that case, there's almost zero CO2 emission. That's a great advantage of that. But we also have to make it cheaper so that hydrogen cars and fuel cells can be more widely distributed in supply. If we look at the price, byproducts are the cheapest way, and the natural gas extraction, the water electrolysis is still the most important, most expensive. I think that Korea should look at these two goals, and to achieve these goals by 2030, we have to try to make more diverse ways of production, maybe to try to increase water electrolysis and decrease other sources. By 2040, however, I think that we have to reduce natural gas-derived hydrogen gas by about 30% and also look at imports from overseas. To do so, I think we have to come up with many institutional mechanisms, maybe a certification system for green hydrogen and maybe various incentives to give to corporations. By 2040, as I mentioned before, hydrogen will have to be imported to Korea. So this is also something that we will have to review very thoroughly. We often talk about hydrogen energy, but hydrogen is not necessarily energy, but it's more energy carrier. It's a delivery mechanism for energy, not necessarily as an energy source. So like copper or batteries, copper wires or batteries. So for copper wires and batteries, however, the hydrogen allows for high efficient carriage of energy. For example, if you can ship this on big hydrogen carriers, and that could lead to a lot of effects. This can bring about a huge change in energy paradigm. If you can imagine it, in Korea creating PV energy here in Korea or creating PV energy in the deserts of Australia, obviously there's going to be a lot more energy and cheaper energy from PV in the Australian desert. So all over the world, there could be many different countries that can create energy in a cheaper way. And if we can have that supply to Korea in a very cost-efficient way, then that would be very helpful for us to achieve our energy transition, especially using hydrogen energy. But there are no ways to bring in those renewable energy to Korea. We cannot put them in batteries, or we cannot lay undersea, deep sea cables, copper wires to Australia. However, we can make use of hydrogen. Let's say we can get PV energy in the deserts of Australia, turn that into electricity, put them in hydrogen, and then put them back into ship carriers and bring them to Korea. Basically, that means we're going to be importing renewable energy from Australia. So the imports of hydrogen is not just hydrogen, but it's a way for us to import renewable energy from other countries. So this is something that we have to look at with keen interest. In Korea, by 2050, Korea wants to become a net zero country, net carbon zero. This means that we need much more renewable energy. For 80% of our power generation has to come from renewable energy. 7 times of Gyeonggido has to be covered in PV panels. That's very challenging. Korea does not have to do this all by itself. We can use hydrogen as a carrier to bring in energy from other countries. So that could be another approach that we can take. There are some countries that are doing this already. Japan is doing this. Japan is teaming up with Australia to do so. Australia will make the hydrogen, and then hydrogen will be exported to Japan. In that case, they do a liquefied hydrogen. They already have a liquefied hydrogen ship. Japan is also doing the same thing with Brunei. Brunei has been working on this for a very long time, various different export projects underway in Brunei. So Korea will also have to work very hard to do the same thing so that we can come up with a way to create a value chain for hydrogen transport and come up with various technologies and offshore transports of hydrogen. One of the things that we need for this is that we have to look at a complex, a hydrogen complex, and a place that can accept and receive this hydrogen source. A very good base for this is in Pyeongtaek, which is located in Gyeonggido. So Pyeongtaek can be a base to receive the imports of hydrogen coming from other countries. So that's a proposal that I want to make. In June of this year, 30 different relevant organizations gathered together to talk about green energy, so clean energy from overseas, which is related to renewable energy. There is also a task force team on that, looking into feasibility studies. And I understand that the feasibility study has entered into this month, and it's going to last for about 1 year. After that, it will be followed by pilot projects and demonstration projects. So going forward, I think that through hydrogen, that we can see a new sort of energy transition. This would lead to more opportunities, have energy transition. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you.
네.
Thank you very much. It was a good opportunity for us to learn about hydrogen as energy and how we can use it, as well as the future tasks ahead of us to achieve the goal. Dr. Kim said that actually we need to create the environment-friendly green hydrogen production base. And also we need to actually identify to create the relevant portfolio to increase the relevant the green hydrogen production base. It is also important to secure relevant competitiveness of hydrogen energy source, and I believe that such tasks are reflected on Gyeonggi province's hydrogen strategic roadmap. No, actually, we would like to invite the experts from the government organizations, Gyeonggi provincial governments, as well as academia. First of all, I'd like to invite team leader Yong-sik from Ministry of Trade for his discussion. Please keep your discussion to 5 minutes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Yong-sik, a hydrogen team leader of Ministry of Trade. First of all, I'd like to extend my appreciation to the organizers for inviting me. I'd like to touch upon the definitions of a few terms. First, there are 3 colors of hydrogen. One is gray, another is green, and the other one is blue. The green hydrogen doesn't generate any CO2 or greenhouse gases, which is a completely clean and energy, and this is ultimate goal that we achieve with regard to hydrogen and energy transition. And gray hydrogen is based on the fossil fuel combustion, and blue hydrogen is based on the extraction, the hydrogen extraction from natural gas. So as I mentioned before, there are three colors of hydrogen, or three different types of hydrogen production. And also there are some other difficult terms, such as the delivery mode of hydrogen, liquefied hydrogen. First of all, we need to actually reduce the temperature of hydrogen delivery to minus 235 degrees Celsius. And also some other ways are used for hydrogen delivery, such as combining hydrogen with some other chemicals. As for hydrogen refueling station, here in Korea, we use liquid hydrogen for delivery and storage. So we need to touch upon those different three types of hydrogen to touch upon the energy transition into hydrogen. So liquid hydrogen is widely used in many countries, including Japan and Korea. However, there is some room to be desired in terms of liquid hydrogen technology of the Korean companies. Last January, Korea came up with hydrogen development roadmap, and for the past 1 year, we've sold 10,000 FCEV, and it seems that we are moving very quickly in terms of hydrogen energy transition. However, when it comes to the green hydrogen area, which doesn't produce any greenhouse gas, we fail to reflect the green hydrogen sector into our hydrogen roadmap announced last year. So we are making relevant preparations for that too. And secondly, the distribution of renewable energy actually accompanied the distortion of the energy market. So it seems that we need to come up with a relevant framework, particularly legal framework, to accommodate this new energy source of hydrogen. We've mentioned some industrial use of hydrogen in steel making and chemical manufacturing sectors. And it seems that we also need to come up with a roadmap for the preparation of industries and businesses to make relevant transition into hydrogen. So early in the beginning of next year, the government, the Ministry of Industry will come up with a relevant roadmap and the framework. It seems that the hydrogen economy sounds very distant to the general public of Korea. So in order to extend this new energy source of hydrogen, we need to enable the general public to experience the merits of hydrogen. For example, when people can use the FCEV buses or the vehicles, then they can experience the merits and the good aspects of hydrogen. That's very important. And here in Gyeonggi province, there are a lot of public buses running, and also there are the public garage bases. And also, Gyeonggi province has the largest number of commuters using public transportation. That is why the Gyeonggi province government should actively engage itself in this hydrogen projects, particularly enabling its people to experience the merits of hydrogen energy source. The hydrogen economy is a kind of new area that no one has touched upon. So it seems that the countries around the world are moving very fast, and Korea needs to follow suit. And it seems that the general public also requires to participate actively. Thank you.
네, 송영식 팀장
So that was Mr. Sung-kyun
이렇게 말씀을 주셨습니다. 특히
He talked about the different concerns that they had at the government level. The Green Hydrogen Roadmap 2.0, which the government is preparing for announcement next year, that they're going to talk about how to create a market for green hydrogen and also for different hydrogen car initiatives. In the end, we want to try to create a hydrogen energy transition that is relevant to people, to our citizens, and also do it in a speedy and timely manner. And in that process, Gyeonggido province can also work as a hub in that regard. Gyeonggido has been very ambitious in embracing different very advanced initiatives that the people are very proud of, and we hope to see more from Gyeonggi province going forward. Now we would like to hear about the different thoughts that they have at the Gyeonggido Assembly. So we'd like to hear from Kim Tae-hyung at the Urban and Environmental Affairs Committee. Yes, hello. It is a pleasure to meet you. My name is Kim Tae-hyung. I'm from Hwasong. At the Gyeonggido Assembly. I'm the Urban and Environmental Affairs Committee. It is a pleasure for me to have this opportunity to speak at the 2020 Gyeonggi International Hydrogen Forum. As a person living in Gyeonggido and as a legislator for Gyeonggi Provincial Assembly, I want to talk about the realistic aspects of hydrogen economy, and I think it would benefit you to hear some actual case examples. I started getting an interest in hydrogen economy when our standing committee, which is called Urban and Environmental Affairs Committee, so naturally we started looking into CO2 emissions, various environmental pollutants such as microfine dust. We wanted to try to decrease those emissions and increase or improve the quality of life for our citizens. In that regard, we tried thinking about new and renewable energies, which are highlighted by our government and overseas. And then we also looked at all of these different appeal of a hydrogen economy. In fact, I actually purchased my own hydrogen car. I'm a driver and operator of a hydrogen car. I said to my friends that I want to own a hydrogen car. Many people said that, isn't that dangerous? What if it explodes? So this is what the general public thinks about hydrogen. They think about hydrogen bombs. I have tried to do some research on hydrogen energy, and I was able to see that it's very eco-friendly, that it's also very economically viable, that the energy is very cost-efficient. But for the general public who has not done that kind of research, they still link hydrogen with hydrogen bombs. That hydrogen is used to make and manufacture bombs. So I thought that that was very unfortunate. The central government and Gyeonggi, the local governments, have not really tried to promote the benefits of hydrogen energy to the people. And I think we need to do more in terms of PR. Hydrogen is very safe and clean and cheap. We have to transition into a hydrogen economy as soon as possible. I think that we are all in consensus there, but I think in terms of safety, there are still many people who are fearful about the safety side of hydrogen. I've also tried to propose an ordinance on the use and promotion of hydrogen energy. So this ordinance has already been legislated, and it's already being enforced under the Framework Act on Hydrogen Economy by the Gyeonggi provincial government. But we don't have a separate team or a department. There is an environmental bureau and maybe some public servants who are working in that team, who are planning the hydrogen economy of Gyeonggi province. There is no separate dedicated team or department on that. I know the DG of environmental policy is going to give a presentation later on, but I want to say that within the provincial government, we need a separate dedicated team who can oversee this work. As I mentioned before, I own my own hydrogen car, and I want to talk about the pros about running a hydrogen car and the cons as well. One of the cons is that we've also heard from Mr. Chung and Mr. Kim, but the refueling infrastructure is still very insufficient nationwide. I think there are about 4 stations. There used to be 4, and now there are about 5 stations in Gyeonggido. I hope next year there will be more refueling stations that will be built around Gyeonggido, but because of this lack of infrastructure, you have to travel to refuel your car. But other than that, as a hydrogen car user, I'm very satisfied. It's much cheaper in terms of filling up the car, and there's almost zero noise. If you compare it to a regular traditional ICE car, ICE car, then it's much quieter and there's almost no emissions of any environmental pollutants. However, the inconvenience is the lack of refueling infrastructure. But as has been mentioned in the presentation, Gyeonggido will, going forward, be very active in rolling out refueling station infrastructure and also have a production complex and even do a sort of a pilot city project for Gyeonggido. And we hope that this will go according to plan, and this will be done in a speedy manner. Gyeonggi Assembly will also provide our support to the central government to facilitate the transition to hydrogen economy.
네.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kim. You just explained, on what occasion you started taking interest in this FCEV and the general perception of FCEV, particularly in terms of safety of this hydrogen energy source. And as a user of FCEV, Mr. Kim just realized the lack of infrastructure of FCEV, particularly the lack of a refueling station of hydrogen energy. And it seems that the Gyeonggi provincial government needs to establish a dedicated team to accelerate the introduction of hydrogen as a new energy source. And also, he just gave us a commitment of the Gyeonggi Assembly to pursue this energy transition in a more active way. I'd like to invite Professor Song Jae-chun from Sungkyunkwan University for his discussion. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Song Jae-chun, professor of Sungkyunkwan University.
So it is an honor for me to be here to sit at the panel discussion for this first session. I would like to thank all the organizers for working very hard to organize the session despite the challenges imposed by COVID-19. We're here to talk about future energy transition and hydrogen, which could be one pillar of that future energy transition. I think that overall, energy has to do with power, heat, and fuel. So we can divide it into those three big categories. However, we've thus far used a lot of oil, gas, and coal. All of these fossil fuel-based energies have ruled and dominated our lives in the past. In Manitoba University, there's Professor Smith in Canada, and he said that energy transition is going to take a very long time, that the energy industry is something that moves at a glacial pace, that even if we see an expansion of renewable energy, that is going to take a lot of time. However, because of COVID-19, early this year, we've seen a sharp decline in oil prices. In fact, it even went to negative territory. This means that energy functions as an infrastructure. If there's a huge shock, then the repercussions would be massive. That's something that we were able to realize this year. And oil has been relegated to a past energy source, and this has been a new signal in the market. On the basis of that, I think one of the key drivers is climate change. That because of climate change, it impacts all of us, and it could really determine our future. I think many countries are responding variously to climate change, and Korea is also trying to expand renewable energy, as Mr. Kim has presented in his presentation today. I think that renewable energy-based green hydrogen is something that we really want to incorporate as soon as possible. I truly agree with that. I wanted to learn more about the cost of green hydrogen, which is right now $3 to $6 per kilo. That's the cost of hydrogen used for power generation. This will go down to $2 by 2030, and even $1 or close to $1 by 2050. Those are the objectives right now. So this would also lead to how much of an impact of the cost of deriving power from renewable energy. For average utility, according to IRENA, the LCOE going forward will go down to about 82% compared to 2010. So that's about 6.8 cents per kilowatt hour. For onshore wind energy, for LCOE, will be about 65 won, which is a 98% cut from 2010. Korea's LCOEs are a little bit higher, but I think with the market becoming more advanced, costs will go down. And this means that the cost for renewable energy will go down, and the cost of green hydrogen will also go down as well. As mentioned in the keynote speech, the expansion of renewable energy is definitely the way for us to go, but we also have to think about the stability of the energy systems. Hydrogen energy could be a key element, a key technology to cover all of those offsets. This power-to-gas technology, which has been mentioned before, where power can be used to generate hydrogen, we want this technology to be established as quickly as it can and contribute to this development, and that's going to be a very important factor. Going forward, this expansion of renewable energy would lead to a cutting of a cost of hydrogen and also tie in for use of hydrogen for peak time. This could mean that hydrogen can be a good energy source and also an energy carrier, that it could be an important part of the energy mix. Thank you.
네,
Thank you very much, Professor Song. You just mentioned the basic infrastructure for the energy transition. It takes time for this infrastructure transition. However, this renewable energy-based green hydrogen project is the only solution to tackle the climate change issue. And also, he just came up with the predictions on the reduced production cost of hydrogen production. And he mentioned that the synergy effects expected from the combination between renewable energy and hydrogen. So we need to work on the production and the use of green hydrogen, which has the biggest potential in terms of hydrogen energy sources. So I'd like to invite our last panelist from Gyeonggi province. It seems that the Gyeonggi province Environment Bureau has better idea about the vision of the Gyeonggi province with regard to this energy transition into hydrogen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jin-sub from the Environment Bureau of Gyeonggi province. It was not easy for us to prepare today's Gyeonggi International Hydrogen Forum. Actually, we planned a large-scale conference last spring. However, in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, we had no choice but to cancel that conference. And today, we are holding this International Hydrogen Forum online at reduced scale due to the pandemic. But still, I'd like to extend my appreciation to all the participants who are participating online. And also, it seems that a lot of young people participate in today's forum online, and it's very promising because these young people are future generation who will actually work on transition into this hydrogen energy. In September 2019, Gyeonggi province announced the basic plan for the hydrogen ecosystem development. The reason why Gyeonggi province put its top focus on hydrogen economy is that, as it was rightly pointed out by Mr. Kim Tae-hyung, the CO2 or fine dust are kind of key issues experienced by the Gyeonggi provincial people. So we just believe that this hydrogen economy, or the hydrogen as a new energy source, is a kind of theme which can approach the Gyeonggi provincial people in a more friendly way. And I have been newly appointed to my position as the Director General for Environment&Environmental, but I realized that this energy transition and the development of hydrogen economy will be a good chance for the province to create more jobs while tackling the environmental issues. So we are talking about hydrogen as a kind of new energy source to resolve environmental issues while creating new jobs, resolving the unemployment issues in the region. So we can catch two birds with one stone if we pursue hydrogen and energy transition. As we all know, the conventional the energy sources that we use mostly are fossil fuels, but the PV in the wind power generation or distributed energy source. In this context, I believe that the local government should take the leadership in terms of the energy transition into renewable energy sources. In the past, the local government's role was not quite highlighted in terms of this energy transition, but now we know that the local government's efforts and the commitments are very important in achieving the successful energy transition. That's why Gyeonggi Province took the leadership and hold today's International Hydrogen Forum. I would like to take this opportunity once again to extend my appreciation to all the participants. It's a great opportunity for us to get together and put our wisdom together to come up with the more feasible way to make this energy transition. And Dr. Kim mentioned the tasks with regard to the development of relevant hydrogen energy portfolio. We are talking about the byproduct hydrogen that we bring from Ulsan region. So currently we are thinking about using the byproduct hydrogen from Cheonan region and use it for hydrogen production here in Gyeonggi Province. And then we will transition into green hydrogen production in the future. And based on the decree of the Gyeonggi provincial government, now we have laid the foundation for the pursuit of the energy transition and the transition into hydrogen economy. So based on all these valuable opinions of the experts, the Gyeonggi provincial government will set its future direction for the introduction of hydrogen. And the industrial impact is very important in terms of introduction of hydrogen. We all know that Gyeonggi province has a large industrial complexes. So Gyeonggi provincial government will provide all the needed support for the development of the relevant original hydrogen technologies. Thank you all again for participating in today's forum despite COVID-19. And also, I'd like to give the promise of the Gyeonggi provincial government to work further on the introduction of hydrogen.
Yes, DG has said that for energy transition that we have to look at hydrogen as a distributed energy, that the local governments have to work hard to facilitate the use of distributed energy such as hydrogen. Now for hydrogen energy, it can be a way to solve various environmental problems and also be a growth engine for the economy for the future. Based on this, based on the infrastructure of Gyeonggido, perhaps Gyeonggido will continue to work towards facilitating green energy going forward. We also have online audience members with us today. I'm sure you have many questions, but due to time constraints, we aren't able to answer all of your questions, but perhaps if you have some, we might be able to take a few. Kwon Ha-eun, would you like to ask a question, please? Yes, hello. I have a question to Mr. Kim Jae-kyung. I think that we've seen a lot of hydrogen cars or hydrogen ships, so hydrogen is being used for transportation. For hydrogen, can there be other areas where hydrogen can also be used in an economical and environmentally safe way? Yes, thank you. I think that's a very good question. I think we've seen a lot of hydrogen cars in the media, and hydrogen is used in transportation. But as I mentioned before in my presentation, it has a lot of general use purposes. Recently, we've seen forklifts as a construction equipment. It can also be used to power drones. And as I mentioned before in my presentation, some of the recent technologies are use of hydrogen and fuel cells that can be put into smartphones and laptop PCs. So we've seen fuel cell battery packs as well. Going beyond energy, however, we can also see this use of industrial energy in steel making, for example. Recently, in the making of steel, you have iron ore. In the making of steel from iron ore, they've used oxygen, and they've used carbon using cork to make steel. But this leads to an emissions of huge amounts of CO2. But due to recent technological advancements, instead of coal, you can also use hydrogen. You can replace coal with hydrogen. And if you can do that, then this means that instead of CO2, there's water, just steam, or that is emitted. So even in the production of steel, there's going to be wide use of hydrogen. And if we can see more green hydrogen, then I think that we can make use of this in the refineries. So maybe instead of the diesel or the oil that you use, where they're making hydrogen to go through the processing process, but in that oxidation process, you can also use hydrogen in that. In fact, there are many different areas, applications of hydrogen.
Thank you very much for a good question and good answer. I'd like to take the second question. Ms. Jung Ji-yoon, please ask your question. My question is directed to Mr. Song. I believe that the hydrogen industry is key to Green New Deal. So FCEV and FSC would be the key items. So what kind of policies or measures are prepared, and what kind of benefits or incentives the relevant businesses can gain? It's a very difficult question. The key of the Green New Deal are the renewable energy and the hydrogen energy. So in order to expand the distribution of FCEV, we actually have a plan to expand the areas of FCEV to buses and the trucks. So by 2025 or 2024, we will expand the FCEV to 40-ton trucks. And also, we have a plan to increase the localization, the ratio of the relevant hydrogen technology. And as I mentioned before, we came up with the policy for the development and improvement of hydrogen ecosystem. And in this context, we provide a lot of R&D supports and the marketing supports and the technological development support. So we just came up with that policy, and based on the policy, from next year, we will provide substantial the support measures and the subsidies to the relevant businesses in the area. Thank you.
예. 시간 관계상
So in the interest of time, I think that we have to conclude the panel discussion. I'm sure that you may still have many questions. Please feel free to reach out to the government or to any of the panelists here, to the Gyeonggido provincial government, and I'm sure they would respond to your questions. I would like to thank the panelists for coming here despite the busy schedules. We want to have an early achievement of low-cost and efficient hydrogen economy to develop it and advance it. We've had the participation of panelists and online panels questions. I think that this has been helpful for the government and for Gyeonggi province and H2 Korea. And we will work very hard towards realizing hydrogen economy. I'd like to ask you for your encouragement and participation. Thank you.
네, 김성복 단장.
Thank you very much to Mr. Kim Sung-bok I would like to thank all of our speakers and panelists for participating in the panel discussion. We do hope that we can see an early transition to hydrogen economy. With that, we would like to close this first session on the present and future of hydrogen economy, and we will have to break. After the break, we will meet back at 1 p.m. for the second session. I'd like to ask you for your participation and your active interest. Thank you.
And presentation of Session 1 has ended. We will be back at 1 p.m. Korean time with Session 2. Thank you.